Alright, so today I'll show you how to brighten up your vocal and get it from sounding like this
This year's been hell on earth, waiting to get what I deserve.
to something like this.
This year's been hell on earth, waiting to get what I deserve.
And the way that I'm doing that is with a cool plugin that I recently learned about called Dopamine right here. I'm also using a bit of saturation from Fat Filter Saturn 2, but Dopamine is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And it's not too cheap. I think it's about 130 bucks, but it usually goes on sale for about 50% off here and there. So if you're interested in getting it, just look out for that sale because they come pretty often. What it does, it's a little weird. I'll probably butcher the explanation a little bit, but Dopamine is a sound enhancer that replicates a tape recording process from back in the day. What audio engineers did was they brightened up a vocal to encode it to tape, and then they had to remove some of that brightness to decode it from tape in order to get rid of that tape hiss and tape noise. But what they realized is when they were encoding to tape and brighten up the vocal, it was creating this really desirable and musical effect on not just vocals, but just songs and individual tracks and stereo buses in general. So what Overloud did is they created a plugin that more or less replicates that process. If anyone's extremely technical when it comes to working with tape, let me know in the comments below if you know the extremely detailed explanation of how all of this works. But more or less, they created this plugin that's really simple to use, and with just a few knobs, it can really help brighten up a vocal. What it does is it doesn't synthesize new harmonics in a vocal. It actually balances out all of the different harmonics in a vocal to make it sound brighter and just more pleasing to the ear. This is the plugin right here. It's not too complicated to use. There's essentially two modes, the 361 mode and the 180 mode. Both do a similar thing, just with a slightly different flavor. There's also a sub mode within the 361 mode right here that also has a slightly different flavor. So you can go in and kind of try out all of these different versions of that sort of tape encoding process from back in the day and see what works for you. But the few controls here, we have your dry signal and your wet signal, so you can decide how much of the dry and how much of the wet you want to bring in. Honestly, I kind of leave the settings like this, so full dry, a bit of compression here that you can bring in as well. And the only two I touch are really the wet and the level. I kind of add it to taste. It all depends on the certain style of the song and what you're trying to do. This particular song right here, it's kind of like a pop ballad. So if I play the piano on its own, right? So with the vocal together, let's take off Dopamine for now.
This year's been hell on earth, waiting to get what I deserve. Come on, give me something to hold on to.
So there's only two elements in the song. It's a piano and it's a vocal. Usually I'd put effects on this vocal, right? Like some reverb, some delays, but to give you kind of the best experience of hearing what this plugin does, I took off all of the effects. That way you're just hearing the vocal as is. The only thing I do have to say, Dopamine is not a fix all problems kind of plugin in terms of cleaning up your vocal, right? Before you use Dopamine, and I usually use it near the end of the chain, I'd highly recommend, first of all, doing some surgical EQ, right? Finding frequencies that annoy you or don't sound that good, removing all of the low-end rumble, using Isotopes RX9 to get rid of any clicks and pops or weird noises, tuning your vocal, time aligning your vocal, compress your vocal. You can even go in and manually kind of edit your vocal from a volume automation perspective to get it sounding right. So once the vocal is good, then I'd say focus on making it sound a little brighter, a little nicer, and tailor towards a certain type of song. And if you want to make a video on how to edit a vocal in terms of tuning it, time aligning it, or just fixing it up with Isotopes RX9, also let me know in the comments below. Once you're kind of done with all of that, then you can think about, okay, how do I make this vocal sit in the mix? How do I brighten it up? How do I make it sound really nice to the ear? And in that case, I usually reach for a couple of tools. For this song in particular, definitely Gem Dopamine is a go-to for making that vocal really crispy. The second is Saturn 2 on the warm tape setting. I don't drive it too hard, but I just bring up some of the high-end frequencies right here. But because I know I'm going to be brightening it up, you know, a lot of times that can bring out some of the harshness and the S's. So you can put 2 de-essers, 1 de-esser right before and 1 right after Gem Dopamine. In this case, I just put a de-esser right after Saturn 2 and Gem Dopamine. That way, as I'm bringing up the brightness, those S's are being tamed and I'm not getting any of the harshness in the vocal. Let's get into the plugin and let's play around with it. So if I play the vocal on its own and I'll bring in the wet slowly, you'll see kind of the difference between the two. So let's start with Gem Dopamine and we'll use Saturn 2 right after.
This year's been hell on earth, waiting to get what I deserve. Come on, give me something to hold on to.
So that's a huge difference, right? What you'll notice is when you bring up the wet, it's bringing up the entire volume and the entire level of the track up. So from a gain staging perspective, you want to be pretty careful not to deceive your ears into thinking the vocal's sounding better just because it's louder. So, you know, the one thing I always look at from a gain staging perspective is I set my metering to pre-fader and then I look at sort of the before and after. So, and I level it out with this level knob right here. So let's look at the before.
This year's been hell on earth, waiting to get what I deserve.
All right, peaking at -3.5, bring in Gem Dopamine and let's see.
This year's been hell on earth, waiting to get what I deserve.
Are a little too loud, so let's bring it down a little bit.
This year's been hell on earth, waiting to get what I deserve.
All right, 3.7.
This year's been hell on earth, waiting to get what I deserve.
All right, roughly in the right ballpark, we're 0.1 dB off, but now we're at least gain stage correctly, and now we're only hearing the difference in harmonics and not the difference in sort of the peak level of the track from a volume perspective. So this is kind of the before and after now with Gem Dopamine for this particular part of the track.
This year's been hell on earth, waiting to get what I deserve. This year's been hell on earth, waiting to get what I deserve.
It's a huge difference, right? Once we add Saturn, so let's bring in Saturn, we can sort of polish that top end just a little more with a bit of saturation.
This year's been hell on earth, waiting to get what I deserve.
So if we take off Saturn and Gem Dopamine, this is the before.
This year's been hell on earth, waiting to get what I deserve. This year's been hell on earth, waiting to get what I deserve.
So huge difference. Vocal sounds bright, sounds clean, sounds crispy. And you can apply the same kind of techniques, not just to a vocal, but you can apply it to, let's bring it to the piano channel and let's see what happens. On piano, I don't know. Sounds okay, but I'll have to play around with it. It's a maybe for me on the piano, but on the vocal, for sure, makes a huge difference. So yeah, I really love this plugin. I actually found out about it through a stream that Disclosure posted when they were walking through one of their productions or one of their mixes. So shout out to Disclosure for talking about this plugin. I think it's a great plugin for brightening up not just vocals, but any other instruments that you want to sort of clean up and brighten. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this plugin. Do you like it? Do you think it sounds nicer? Do you actually think it sounds harsh? If you want other vocal production or vocal mixing tutorials, let me know and I can make a video about something that you guys are looking for. Hope you enjoyed the video, and if you liked it, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.